All right. So we want to welcome everyone to Environmental Fridays. This is season 5 of Environmental Fridays. Our schedule for season 5 and 6, the link is down below here. Are you guys seeing my screen? Yes. And we have a QR code also that you could use to get into the schedule. It gives you the schedule as well as the short bio of our speakers. One of the things I've been doing this particular season is sort of having us reflect a little bit on this very iconic photograph taken by an Apollo astronaut. One of the things that I want to focus on today is that if you look at this picture of our Earth, our blue planet, there really isn't clear visibility in terms of boundaries. You could probably make out some land masses and stuff, but in terms of national boundaries, it's not there. The point I'm trying to make with that is that many of the things that we are discussing in Environmental Fridays is irrespective of boundaries. Boundaries are irrelevant. Pollution is something that is global. Biodiversity, climate change, all of these things are not respecters, if you will, of boundaries. And this photo here, this iconic photo called Earthrise. Mute, yeah. So this iconic photo, Earthrise, to me tells us that our problems are global and we need to treat them as such. If you want to learn some more about the actual astronaut who took this picture, there's an interview. Again, if you do the QR code, use the QR code, you could get to that interview. Okay, so today, our speaker that we have is Seth Itzkan. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And I would summarize what at least I'm learning from him is that soil restoration is a climate solution. And to me, that's new in the sense that we don't really think about soil in that way. We think about atmosphere, oceans, all that, stuff, but never really consider soil as part of the climate solution. So I think I'm going to be learning a lot today. So Seth is the co-founder of Soil for Climate, which is an international NGO, non-governmental organization that advances the science, policy, and practice of soil restoration as a climate solution. And he's had lots of experience bringing this idea to researchers, producers, legislators, citizens, and he's done work in multiple countries in East Africa. You may recognize in his photo here some emblems of like the Maasai, I think, herders. He's participated in the United Nations Food System Summit. And one of the reasons why I was interested in a topic like this on Environmental Fridays is to connect it to World Food Day. World Food Day is actually coming up here on Monday. It's Monday, October 16th is World Food Day. And so we wanted to have a topic that was related in some way. So Seth is a graduate of Tufts University College of Engineering and Studies of the Future program. and College of Engineering at Tufts University, and also um, Studies of the Future program at the University of Houston, Clear Lake. So without any more introductory remarks, Seth, it is yours. I'll stop sharing. And you should be able to share.
Okay, very good. Very good. All right, let me go to full screen here. All right, Desmond, do you see my title screen here?
Full screen, yep.
Okay, great. Well, Dr. Murray, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Of course, it's an honor and pleasure to be on your program today. And I'm happy to come back at any, other time to dig more deeply or do a slightly different type of presentation. Please feel free to come in when there's 10 minutes before a hard stop. Just come in.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, friends, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Again, as Dr. Murray said, my name is Seth Itzkan. I'm the co-founder with my colleague Carl Tiedemann of a group called Soil for Climate. We advocate for soil as a climate solution, and there's great opportunity there for soil restoration. And there's multiple ways in which restoring soil improves the climate. Capturing carbon, of course, is just one of them, but there are so many others too, in terms of the water cycle and the behavior of the land interacting with the atmosphere, and then mitigating problems like droughts and floods, and then of course the whole human element of it. And then in relation to food, with the food day coming up, I mean, obviously food is a major factor of all this too. So it sort of becomes everything. And there is an innovation called holistic planned grazing. In the title, I just called it holistic grazing just because there literally wasn't enough room. But anyway, it's formally called holistic planned grazing. And that's a way of moving the livestock in a way that replicates the beneficial behavior of the wild herds on the land. And that's a very important innovation. And so I want to focus on that one particularly because so much of the earth is in some type of grassland or semi-arid grassland that had very rich soils called mollisols that co-evolved with these animals. So so that's the context of this presentation. And again, thank you all for being here. So I'll just jump forward now. So the concept of holistic planned grazing was invented by a man named Alan Savory, and he grew up in the former country of Rhodesia. It's now Zimbabwe and Zambia. He lived in southern Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, and a rangeland scientist, and studying the impact of animals on land and how to try to keep lands from desertifying and how to try to reverse the desertification. And he discovered literally over 50 years ago, around 1970, that you could move livestock in a way that replicated wild herd behavior, and you could have restorative impacts on the land. These are just some pictures of him. The picture on the left I like, that's him with his grandson, but you'll notice his grandson is wearing a Soil for Climate hat. So I just kind of love that picture. And then he gave a TED Talk, which is very popular. You may want to check that out. Just Google Alan Savory and TED, and you'll see that. Between the TED Talk and then the YouTube version of the TED Talk, there's something like 20 million views so far. And now, Desmond, it's amazing. I had no idea you were going to start with this photo. I swear, I had no idea.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I know we didn't really communicate on that.
No, nothing. So for the people audience and the people seeing this picture, there was nothing between Desmond and I. I had no idea he was going to start with this photo, but I often start with this photo because at least sort of in the US culture, if not in the world culture, the Apollo program of the late 60s is in many ways what sort of initiated the sort of the environmental movement, or sort of the modern environmental movement. And seeing this picture, and then this is the picture which became the cover of the Whole Earth catalog, the first issue of that. And there's just so many stories along those lines. But what I want to jump forward now, over 50 years, 55, God, I don't want to think about how many years it's been. But anyway, so this was the cover of the New York Times, December 30th, 1968. And then literally the picture of the whole Earth from space was first taken in 1972. So I want to go to this picture now, because this is my vision of the next environmental movement picture. If you can say that the Earth, the picture from space, was what sort of initiated the environmental movement in the 1960s and 70s, I'd like to believe this is the next picture. And the picture now is of regeneration, of restoration. And so I really want everyone to know this picture. This is a picture from the Karoo region of South Africa. And to me, it just sort of says everything. And it's so remarkable, it almost looks fake. But I assure you it's not. I've been there. You can see this from space. And I'll show you that in a second. But you see this old style metal fence there, barbed wire fence. I call this the paradigm fence, because it really is a fence between two paradigms of land management. And if I could point some things out to you, do you see the mouse, by the way, when I move my mouse here? Do you guys see that?
It's small, but we've seen it.
You see it, right?
Yeah.
So this sort of light colored stuff, this is grass.
Yeah.
And then these are the woody shrubs. You'll notice, you sometimes hear that expression, there wasn't a blade of grass, right? There is literally, not figuratively, there is literally not a single blade of grass on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
That it's not being figurative, that's literal. There's literally no grass on this side of the fence. And what's the difference? The difference is the side on the left is doing what's called holistic planned grazing. They have many more animals, not less, more. There's about 4 times as many animals, per unit of area. So per hectare, per acre, whatever your unit of measurement is, the density, about 4 times as many. The fact is, the land here is dying from a lack of animals, from a paucity. There aren't enough. Soil in these dry land systems needs animals, and it needs a lot of them. The animals move the nutrients in the water across the land during the dry season. And the dry season is most of the year, frankly, on most of the planet. Most of the planet is in some type of semi-arid, seasonal rainfall environment. And those types of environments need large herds of animals. Now, those animals move in a particular type of way that co-evolved with the predators and, with the rains and with the land. And humans obviously disrupted that natural system. So they had the livestock and they kept them in these small areas. And yes, in those cases, the livestock would overgraze, but at the same time they were overgrazing, they were also under impacting. And that's a nuance that some people have trouble grasping, and it is worth emphasizing that point. The animals can simultaneously be overgrazing and under impacting. So what's overgrazing? Overgrazing means literally eating the plant continuously before it has a chance to recover. But under impacting means not enough animals to create the proper natural disturbance that a large herd would have. It would have turned up the soil, it would have deposited dung and urine over a large area, and it would have moved on. So A, it wouldn't have overgrazed, and B, it would have impacted the land in a proper way. And so you have this situation now where you have too few animals that are overgrazing where they graze, but they're not impacting the land enough. Do you get that? Do you get
Yeah.
that's an important point. And so you need a lot of animals, but you also need them moving. So there's the gist of it from an ecological point of view. And holistic planned grazing creates a system where practitioners can move their animals in a context that works for the practitioner socially and economically and environmentally and all of that. Here's the pictures from space. This is from Google Earth Pro. Google Earth Pro. And the coordinates are right down here at the bottom. 32 degrees, blah, 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 by 23 degrees, elevation, 850 miles. So you can take a screenshot of this and you can fire it up yourself on Google Earth Pro. So, so when people say, there's no evidence or whatever, I mean, that's preposterous. Of course there is. You can see it from space. And where this picture was taken, the previous picture was right about here. Right about here. Yeah. And I've been to this spot myself. Okay, so now moving on, I'm not going to have time to go through all the slides, friends, but I'd rather just get the main points across, and we can come back another time and dig deeper into the science. But most of the world actually is in some type of semi-arid seasonal rainfall environment. It's important to say both those things, semi-arid and seasonal rainfall, because, and this is what's fascinating that most people don't get, Johannesburg down here gets almost exactly the same amount of rain as London, almost exactly the same amount of rain. And a lot of people are shocked to hear that, because Johannesburg is obviously in a more savanna grassland environment. London is obviously not. What's the difference? So it's not the total amount of rain, it's the seasonality. The difference is all of the rain in Johannesburg happens in 3 months. It happens in what's called the monsoon season. And it's dry for the other 8 months of the year. Whereas in London and in the northern United States, it's perennially wet. We always get rain throughout the year. And that's the key issue, the seasonality. So in these semi-arid seasonal rainfall environments, this is where you get grasslands, and this is where you get your classic sort of savanna, large grazing animals with predators, that classic sort of Africa scenario. But that Africa scenario used to be everywhere. It used to be in the United States, it used to be on all Central Asia, Southern Africa, large parts of South America. And now Australia is an interesting case because Australia split away from the former sort of pseudo the continent, the supercontinent, when they were all together before the evolution of ruminants. So it's very interesting. So you didn't get the type of Africa savanna-like biology on Australia, and as a result, it was drier. The soils were drier than they would have been otherwise. So it's a very interesting sort of scenario there. We can get more into that. But anyway, so you see the diagram with the CO2. So soils are a huge repository of carbon dioxide. Again, I don't want to be just focused on carbon dioxide and carbon, but that is a major part of the conversation. And then this this graph gets into a little bit more. Let me Let me go here more. Let's just start on the left side for now. You see what it has these numbers. This is atmosphere 800, photosynthesis 120 plus 3, plant 60. So these numbers represent gigatons or billions of tons of carbon. Here you see GTC, okay? Gigatons or billions of tons of carbon. And so you see it says soil 2300. That's 2300 billion or 2.3 trillion tons of carbon in soil. Okay, now you see it says plants 550, atmosphere 800. So 800 and 550 is 1350. There's almost twice as much carbon in soil than in the plants and atmosphere combined. Combined, right? So it would be 2600. There's practically twice as much in soil than in plants and atmosphere combined. So soil is a major repository, a reservoir, sink of carbon. Oops. And and so changes in land management for the better or for the worse can result in big fluxes of carbon either in or out of soil. And the whole point of the restoration agriculture, regenerative agriculture and regenerative grazing, regenerative grazing is sort of the generic term. Holistic plan grazing is a specific term for a type of management that results in regenerative grazing. One of the whole points is to restore soil biology, and restoring soil biology means restoring soil carbon. And then, one of the problems with the whole carbon markets is that it's just focused on carbon. But the story is so much more than that. And I hope people, can understand that. What else do we want to say? Well, the oceans are obviously also a major player in this. But in terms of things, we can do with agriculture, with grazing, obviously soil is where the game's being played, so to speak. Now, you notice here it says fossil pool, 10,000 billion tons. So that's 10 trillion tons. Okay, this is fossils. They call it the fossil pool. It's coal, oil, natural gas. That's what they're referring to here. Okay, that's what that refers to. But that's not part of a cycle until we drill for it and burn it. Right? That's what's going on here. We're literally going all the way down there and grabbing that. But in terms of sort of the natural cycle, this would have just remained here forever, other than like volcanoes. But in terms of the natural cycle, this is the game here. Okay, so let me just sort of move on. Here's sort of another way of showing the prior slide. We'll go back to that in a second. Yeah, see, fossil fuels 9, the number 9 here. So 8.9, so around 9. It's actually gone up since then. But again, this refers to billions of tons of carbon that are coming out, now in this case, through fossil fuels. So this is the source, and then the sinks. Where is it going to go? Some of it goes to the oceans, where it dissolves and becomes carbonic acid, which is a bad thing. Some of it goes to the atmosphere, where it ends making global warming, which is a bad thing. But some of it just naturally is taken up by plants into the soil, which is a good thing. So there's two bad things and one good thing. What the whole focus of reversing global warming, just to cut right to the chase, is to make this number smaller, stop burning the fossil fuels, and make this number bigger. Right. That's really, if we had to just stop the presentation right now, there's your takeaway. Now, everyone knows that this number can be smaller, but most people don't realize that this number can be much bigger. It could be maybe, twice this. And that humans can play a role through agriculture of significantly increasing this number, and holistic plan grazing can be a big part of that. It won't be the only thing, but it can be a big part of the solution. And here's just another slide that really helps to get the point about how important soil and grasslands are to the climate, because it's almost amazing. This is another one of those things where you think this can't be real. No, this is real. Well, these plants are real. These are real plants. And then this is just a photographic backdrop, obviously. But these are real plants hanging in front of a photographic backdrop. And you can see that, that they're folded. They're folded twice. Look how deep this would have been. You know, 12 feet or so. This is topsoil. This is a horizon. Okay. This is what the Great Plains used to be like. And the reason why soil is dark, frankly, is because of the carbon. That's why it's dark. That's why coal is dark. That's why the graphite, you know, in your pencil is dark. That's just the color it becomes. So this is from an exhibit called Exposed: The Secret Life of Roots. It was put on by the National Botanical Society. And if they were to do this again, or if I were to consult for them to do this again, there should be pictures of animals up here. And down here, you know, all the burrowing creatures, of course, the prairie dogs and everything else. So the reality is that there'd be all sorts of tunnels in here, and there'd be animals up here, lots of them. And so the whole picture would have included the animals above and below ground and the predators. And then, so the holistic planned grazing tries to replicate that behavior, that wild herbivore behavior with livestock. And then this just gets on to what, you know, the Midwest used to be like in the United States, or in any, most continental interiors had some sort of landscape like this. Well, here we talk about an unfortunate part of America's history, really horrific, frankly, where the buffalo were intentionally killed, really for genocidal reasons. Again, the picture like this doesn't even seem real. It's real, unfortunately. So this was done intentionally to put pressure on the Native American people. But, you know, it backfired on America, because then we got this. We got the Dust Bowls, and we're still suffering from that. And so when you kill the buffalo, you kill the soil. And here I get into some deeper science. Desmond, let me just pause for a second. How are we doing for time?
Oh, we at the top of 10 o'clock. So you got about at least 10 more minutes to present.
I want to have plenty of time for questions and answers from people.
Yeah, we will. If you do 10 more minutes and we start Q&A, we should be good.
All right. So I'll just get techie on this slide. Then I'll show just some quick pictures of practitioners. But you know, there are sort of some sort of main points that I want people to get. And this is a 500 million year story. This is a 500 million year story of the Earth's climate. And so you look here, 500, that's 500 million years. And then this is the temperatures in centigrade. Okay, so you can see that there have been different sort of paradigms over this time. Of course, you would expect there would be, but there's basically been 4 dramatic temperature drops. This is sort of half of one, and then 4. So 1, 2, sort of half, and then 3. 3.5 dramatic temperature drops over a 500 million years. I'll get into that now. The bottom graph is also a 500 million year graph. Okay, so it goes back the same amount of time, but this is a logarithmic graph. So the bottom one favors the current time. So the current one, the top graph, you notice the units are equal. Okay, but the bottom one, the units are each becoming shorter and shorter. So on the far left, these units are in hundreds of millions of years, then tens of millions of years, then millions of years, then 200,000 years, then 5,000 years. So the bottom graph, it's the same amount of time total, but it favors the present. You see what's going on here? It's a magnifying glass into the present. Okay. All right. So I just wanted that to be clear to you. Okay. So what's going on here in this drop is this is the evolution of life on land. This is the earliest forms of life on land. Creates a significant drop in temperature. Then you have the evolution of trees, okay, which creates another significant drop in temperature. Okay, now there's also periods where the temperature goes back up. I don't have time to get into that right now, but let's just talk about the drops. Then there was the evolution of flowering plants, and that was also created a significant drop in temperature. Then we see this, and this is the evolution of grasslands. The grassland soil is called the mollisol, literally means soft soil, and the ruminants, the grazing animals. This coevolution of these two together created a drop in temperature on the planet as significant as any in the last 500 million years. So that's a major takeaway. Again, if the presentation stops now, the main points are soil is a fundamental part of climate stability, of regulating climate, and the evolution of grasslands with the ruminants is a fundamental part of the modern soil paradigm. And by modern, we're talking, the last 20 or 30 million years. So that's really sort of that takeaway there. And then in terms of the focus on the present, that's this is when I say the present, I mean, the last 30 million years. That's the evolution of grasslands, the mollisols with the grazing animals. And then what you have the ice ages. The ice ages are caused by a slight wobble in the Earth's axis. That wobble's always there. It didn't just start to happen, but it doesn't take, we don't notice it. It's not relevant until CO2 is low enough. When CO2 is high, you don't notice the ice ages. Then you have the evolution of agriculture in here, and you have what's called the Holocene, where the temperature is sort of becomes stable. And then at the very end, see here, it jumps. It's like a solid just line up. You see this here? So this is modernity. This is, this is modernity, modern but in terms of geologic time, it's just a, it's not even a second. It's just straight up and down. So that's sort of the large story, if you will. And then let me just, for the sake of time, we get a lot more into the science here, but let's just get to the grazing part of it. Maybe even just keep this view. I wonder if I can zoom in, make it a little bigger. Yeah. Yeah. So just getting to the grazing part of it, you can see examples where they're now beginning to move animals. So these are mixed species herds. Oh, right. So here's the wild. This is a wild mixed species herd. There's wildebeest and zebra, and then where we want to start using livestock as a proxy for that. So here's sheep, goats, and cows. This is on a ranch in Zimbabwe. And now you have the herders. See, there's three guys there, replicating a predator, just casually walking slowly, so the animals aren't too stressed. They'll still pause and eat. But you get this herd behavior. And that's the whole point of what they're trying to achieve there. And then here's examples of restoration. So they call this the elbow site, because this tree just happens to look like an elbow. Okay. And then here's Alan Savory at the same spot. See how they restored the land? Mm-hmm. And then here's the sites overlaid on pictures overlaid on top of each other. And then I'll just show a few more. Oh, and then here it is. So I went back there 2014. Many of these pictures I've taken myself. I've done a lot of this investigation personally. And then this is a site they call the two tree site, just because from this view you can sort of see those two trees. And then again, you can see the restoration. And then there's me in 2013. And then I went back again in 2014. And just to be clear, whether or not it's green isn't the key issue here, because it's seasonal. So yes, there's a wet season, it will be green. The issue is the ground cover. Right. This is the issue. The grass versus no grass. That's the issue. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I can be there. I was there in 2013. It was brown, but that's okay. It's okay to be that color during the dry season, as long as the ground is covered. But what you do notice during the wet season is you notice this patch here. And this is a wonderful perennial grass called Panica maximum. And this only grows in the best conditions. You see the tiny seeds here, the little seed heads, Panica maximum. And then look at the good soil. And then in this picture here, you see the fungus, and you can even see the centipede there. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really the indicator, is not the green versus the brown, because in a seasonal rainfall environment, brown is natural in the dry season. The indicator is whether or not the grass is covered, and then the type of plant species that are growing. And then, of course, what the soil itself looks like. All right, so let's pause there, because I want to have time for questions. But I want to just show people, it just goes on and on. I mean, I have pictures from all over the world of this type of restoration, and different practitioners doing the restoration. Here's just really quick. Here's pictures from the United States, just really quickly. This is from a peer-reviewed paper about this particular property, and then this shows the land under different types of management. So these pictures were taken the same time at the same ranch, but there were different plots on the ranch which were under the regenerative management, the holistic planned grazing, for different amounts of time. See? So this is Georgia. This is like, gets tons of rain. There's no excuse for sand like this. But when land is mismanaged, this is what you have. And the fact is, this is common now. This is common in the Southeast. Plant cotton, peanuts. This is what it does to the land. This is a land sort of in the middle, sort of transitioning, becoming healthy. And then this is what a healthy pasture in a place like Georgia should look like. And then here's the owner of the land. His name is Will Harris. And now here's me on his property. You can see the topsoil that he's recreated. And then here's the subsoil. And then here's literally right across the street from his ranch here. This is his neighbor's property in cotton and peanuts, like almost everyone else in Georgia. Here's his property with grazing. But what I want you to see here, you see the difference in elevation?
Mm-hmm.
So his property is literally almost a foot higher. It's literally almost, well, right there, that's a good 14 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This farmer, like most now, are basically farming the subsoil. There's basically no topsoil left.
Hmm.
And they're using fertilizer. They're all just depending on fertilizer, which is of course dependent on the fossil fuel industry. So you have this ridiculous, feedback loop where you're using fossil fuels, you're creating global warming by using fossil fuels to keep this type of deleterious agriculture going, which is just lessening and lessening the soil carbon, which is then adding more CO2 to the atmosphere. It's ridiculous. But this is being restored with grazing. He's a grazer, but he's doing holistic planned grazing. So as we say, it's not the cow, it's the how. All right. So let me stop there and let's just take questions.
Right. Very good. Again, very insightful, learning a lot in an area that we don't really look at normally in terms of climate change, climate control, and more importantly, restoration. So I have I'll frame this question in an interesting way. So I am the president of the United States, and I've
Thank God.
and I've elected you to be
Uh-oh.
our Secretary of Agriculture. What are like 2, 3, 5 top things you would want to change and establish?
Well, Dr. Murray, President
President.
Murray, I'm honored to take this position. Well, the first thing I would do would be to change how decisions are made.
Okay.
And I would invite all my undersecretaries and the let's say the heads of agriculture of all the states to come together, and we would create what we call a holistic context. We would do something called holistic management, and we would all just do that together, and we would ask some basic questions like, well, how do you want your lives to be? What do you want the land to be like? What's your vision for the future? What's your form of sustainable livelihood? How do you see the land sustaining you 100 years from now and your grandchildren? Just get basic statements about how you want your life to be. I would just start with that. Well, I would follow the holistic management process. I apologize, I may not be summarizing it properly. People should just read the book themselves, the holistic management book, and get the proper methodology. So I apologize if I'm not saying it quite right. But anyway, in answer to your question, that's what I would do. I would invite my colleagues to form a holistic context, and then we would go from there. So I wouldn't say, for example, oh, you have to do this or that, because then that's just reinforcing the type of management principles of top down that created the problem in the first place. But I would assume that the kind of indicators we want to look at moving forward, for example, is erosion.
Right.
Something as simple as that. So instead of saying meat or not meat, or this crop or that crop, what if we just said we want to stop erosion? Bang, just something like that. So where do you think the erosion is going on? Which property do you think is eroding? Well, obviously it's this one. Right? I mean, that's just sort of obvious. So what if, I don't know, what if there was a tax on erosion? So, you know, people say we want to have a carbon tax or a meat tax. Well, this practitioner is in meat. In fact, he sells to Whole Foods in Atlanta. You walk into a Whole Foods in Atlanta, you might very well see meat from this practitioner. It won't have his label on it. It won't say White Oak Pastures, but it'll just say Whole Foods, grass-fed steak or something like that. And this guy's in cotton, corn, and peanuts, and like everyone else in Georgia. So you can't be taxing the product. You need to tax a specific negative outcome or a negative indicator, and the negative indicator is erosion. And that can be measured pretty easily. I would tax bare ground. If your ground's bare, that's a problem. So, but whatever. But I wouldn't have a draconian saying, well, this is what to do. I would invite people to first come together and do holistic management, and let's see what comes from that.
Right.
Here's the book, by the way.
Holistic. Okay.
It's a problem with doing a virtual background in
Yeah.
in Zoom is if you hold it too close, it disappears. So anyway, there's the book. So okay, let's get another question.
The questions. Larry,
I have a question.
okay.
Hi, Larry.
In Canada, we have a carbon tax, which has done absolutely no good for the environment, but it's just taken money away from people that are trying to do more and fund the federal government. I've seen more good out of the planned grazing I've done on my land, but I can't get anybody to acknowledge the good I've done by doing holistic planned grazing. How do we get that next step up to the people in charge?
Larry, I'm sorry. I wish I could answer that question. If you'd had more of a technical question about the science, that's policy stuff. I'm sorry, my brother. I don't have that answer. All I can do is just keep promoting the science. You know what you could do? Actually, let me just do a quick stop share and then a reshare of Safari here, just real quick. So we have a document. Yeah, we have a document called Hope Below Our Feet, Publication Compendium of Well-Managed Grazing. So for the sake of this compendium, I call it well-managed grazing, because in a lot of the papers, they don't specifically say holistic planned grazing, but whatever. And it's just sort of a generic term, well-managed. You know, as a means of improving rangeland ecology, building soil carbon, and mitigating global warming. So there's something like 40 peer-reviewed papers in here. This is peer-reviewed. So if it's in this compendium, they are peer-reviewed. Okay, these are all academic journals that are available in your library or in any, you know, online academic, you know, compendium. So there's close to 40 peer-reviewed papers now in here. I don't have time to go into the details on these, but it's annotated. This is our value add. There are other compendiums like this where they just put in the abstract. I've done more. I've read the papers. I've grabbed the paragraphs that I think are relevant. You know, I've highlighted the key phrases. So this is an annotated compendium, you know, with my annotation. So you're just going to have to use science. That's the only way they're going to listen. So, so you can refer people to this compendium, and let me grab the link right here and drop that into the chat.
So while you're doing that too, though, in answer to, I'll give a shot on Larry's question, because that's part of the problem today, even with, for example, the pandemic. A lot of people, they were aware of the science, I would say, but made different decisions. So how do you bridge between the science, policy, practice? And part of it, I think, is getting into the political system, having groups of people. So for example, Larry, do you know of other persons doing what you've done? Have you guys formed some group, some association? Then you could start to leverage, you could start to target, you know, your representatives or whatever. But there is a process where you could, because the science alone, just sort of isolated, you have to be able to communicate it. And part of what we do, at least in the way things are set up, is through politics and groups and stuff like that. Is that something that you're trying to do?
Yes, we've done that. I've set up the work with Manitoba Forage and Grasslands. We do a regenerative conference. We have 250 people a year come in, plus people from the governments, both sides, federal and provincial. We try that. It's gaining momentum.
It's slow.
I'd like to see
Change
more.
is slow.
Yeah. But I've done a lot with it. Like, we have a conference in a month. We do a lot of this kind of stuff. We talk about what we're doing. And there's people like us, like me, that have done this for 15, 20 years.
Mhm.
And we've seen the benefits of doing planned grazing. We've seen the benefits of doing diversity of our soils, diversity of our land.
Mhm.
But yet it's the guys with the big dollars talk at the end of the table that make the policies. And we're just sort of saying, well, we don't have this kind of money to play the game, but I can bring you the information to you.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
basically where it sits.
Yeah, it's slow, that's for sure. But it beats like being silent and, you know, not being seen. So bringing in the representatives is what one of the things you said you did to your conferences is one of several ways. So I see a raised hand. Mary Alice, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry that I came in late, but good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Murray, this is a pleasure. I had an opportunity to speak with, well, I had an appointment yesterday with the chief of academics of the high school, well, Ben Arbor area schools. And this thing with climate change is so real that my question was initially, what grade level is good to, well, I guess from kindergarten up, but they finally got science and biology back into the school, and she was saying that they were beginning to work with they were doing some work with uh, uh, one of our colleges, Michigan State, and I'm like, Michigan State University, and I'm like, well, we have Andrews closer, and they are working on some of this stuff, and what I'm trying to do is just connect the dots, to connect our children to whatever we can obtain, well, whatever I can put together, you know, attending meetings like this and drawing people together. There was a young lady by the name of Lauren, I think, Laurel, or from Chicago, that came in and did a soil testing sampling session with us one weekend, and it was just amazing. I don't know, I'm just all over the place because this is so large, and I'm just trying to gather all I can and connect science of climate change back with our schools, with our children, so they can learn the importance of their tomorrow, and breathing clean, free air, and growing fresh fruits and vegetables, and drinking affordable, safe water, you know?
So right, so what you're touching on is also the role. So we talked about the role of politics, right? The political process, but you're looking also at a more even fundamental role of education to bring awareness to the science that is being described here by Seth. And so there is a national movement in terms of that, but on an individual and local level, it's the local school district, the local teachers that have to try to implement these science principles and concepts. And while it would be nice to have environmental science classes, what one of the approaches that is being done is to try to incorporate environmental principles across the curriculum. But again, it depends on the implementation, depends on local school districts.
Hi, Desmond, can I respond to Mary?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Is it Mary Alice?
Mary Alice.
That's fine, yes.
Hi, Mary Alice. Thank you for being here.
Hello, and you're welcome.
So, you know, there's sort of several sort of levels or arcs of this. One is just the basics. I mean, if you're talking about kids, that's just the basic science of biology and climate, and how biology interfaces with climate. And that's just basic, just having them even understand that. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that the physical sciences, I don't want to say unfortunate, whatever, it's just what it is. The physical sciences dominate almost every conversation about the environment. And so the atmosphere is reduced to a physical science conversation that says, well, there's too much CO2 from fossil fuels, which creates warming through the greenhouse effect. It's like, okay, that's true. But there's this profound biological part of it with the soil and the trees and, you know, and the food that's almost, it's just beginning now. So when you look at the conversations now at the national or UN level about climate, they're beginning to acknowledge that, yes, biology is a huge part of this. Trees, they're just now acknowledging the trees.
You know, can I say something? You know, and everything isn't black and white. Everything isn't about color and racism. But for me, and I've learned it through watching others and listening to others, is that some of us as colored people are visual learners. And you showed a picture not too long ago that explains, I could look at it as you were talking and explained how it's like when something is absorbed, you know, how those plants, that large picture that you showed is like how it absorbed like a sponge. You know, when I saw it visually, I was able to obtain what you were explaining.
And thank you, Mary Alice. And the thing is that the beauty of soil and soil restoration is that it's its own reward, also in terms of sort of a learning experience for kids. If you're talking particularly about kids in schools, the fact that it's also a climate solution is almost irrelevant. You don't even, it's not even a necessary part of the conversation. Just get kids outside to love soil, to smell it, literally to smell soil. I mean, there's an experience for you. Literally smell the soil. And I've got a great picture of Gabe Brown just smelling this handful of, you know, it's dark. It's practically black. It looks like chocolate. And it's just right from his ranch. I mean, he just dug it up while I was there with him. And you can smell it, you know, that kind of experience. Now, it also happens to be about 8 or 9% soil organic matter. Well, I mean, that's huge. The average soil organic matter in commercial farms like the one I showed you next to Will Harris's farm, it's like 1%. And good healthy soil should be around 8 or 9. And that's huge. I mean, in the soil world, the difference between 1% and 8 or 9, like that's like a universe of difference in terms of the amount of water it holds, in terms of the amount of biology, all the little microorganisms in there, the health of the plants, the nutrients, the whole health aspect of this. We didn't really get that much into food, but what do you think? I mean, when you look at a land that's there's no topsoil left at all, right? It's just the subsoil, and they're just using fertilizer to go grow the plants. If let's say you're growing peanuts there, do you think those peanuts are going to be as healthy for you, or corn or carrots or potatoes? You think they're going to be as healthy as corn or carrots or potatoes or peanuts grown on soil that, has several feet deep of topsoil that's nice and dark like that? I mean, obviously not, because where do the nutrients come from? The nutrients come from the fungal relationships with the roots that go all the way down, and the little fungi are the ones that they dissolve the rocks. They get the little minerals out of the rocks, right? That's where the minerals come from. And then they give it to the plants and it gets into the food. So the whole mineral cycle has been destroyed. So, that's why, organic carrots just taste better. I mean, they look better, they taste better. When you go into your friend's chicken coop, and if you've got pasture-raised chicken, you look at the eggs, they're like orange. They're like bright, deep orange, right? Compare that to the typical eggs that you get at the supermarket. They're like that light yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hello, this isn't rocket science.
So the other thing too, Seth, in terms of physical science, that where we could do a lot better. So I used to teach grade 10 chemistry. All grade 10 chemistry textbooks has a chapter devoted to water. None of them have a chapter devoted to soil. None. Absolutely none. Obviously, from a chemistry point of view, this is where all of our materials come from, right? Silicon, carbon, calcium, I mean, all of the minerals like that, and yet zero of the textbooks teach anything about soil. So that's one of the areas too that would need change in order for us to change our perspective on soil.
Yeah. The soil is sort of that weird thing that's a mixture between biology and chemistry and geoscience, and people just haven't known how to deal with. Well, where does it belong? The science categorizations, unfortunately, don't have a place for soil, because they're still trying to figure out, well, what is it? It's like, I mean, what is it? You take up some good soil and you break it apart, and there's a few pebbles, but then there's these tiny little worms, and then there's some roots and some degraded leaves, and you just don't even know what it is. How do you even?
That's why we should teach it across the curriculum, right? So each perspective gets a shot at it.
Yeah. That would be great. I would love to see something like that. But again, getting back to what Mary Alice was saying, you really just got to get the kids outside. You got to bring them to a farm, an organic farm, okay, and then a farm that has the animals in rotation with crops, and just have them smell the soil, have them eat. Literally have like a field day, lunch day, where they have some fresh eggs and some fresh meat and some fresh vegetables. They have that experience, then they can go back to school, and then they can learn about the chemistry of nutrition, or they can learn about soil organic matter and carbon chains, and they can learn about photosynthesis and how the plants and the water cycle. I mean, you can dig very deep into the science very quickly, and you can have plenty of curricular material at the science level.
Right.
Won't mean anything until you've had that sort of visceral experience, that tactile experience, of going out, into the farm. And and at Will Harris's ranch, where I showed you where it was the cotton farmer or the peanuts, whatever, and then his right next to it. There's a little viaduct there. There's a gully for the drainage off the highway. I mean, it's just your standard sort of highway drainage thing, and the viaduct is on Will's side. And so the neighbors on the other side of the road. So there's a little channel under the road coming from the neighbor's side going into Will's side. And so you can literally see the neighbor's runoff coming into the runoff on Will's side. And it's red. It's red because it's all the clay soil there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you literally see this red water flowing in from the neighbor's property. Will has something like 4 times as much property, but the water coming off his property is crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
So you see crystal clear water, completely transparent water, translucent water coming off of Will's property. And then you see where it's mixing with the red water coming off the neighbor's property.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, bang, you can stand there, you can see it right on the highway, the little channel, the viaduct next to the highway. And you could look at Will's property and you could see the tall grass, and you could just like this, look at the neighbor's property and you see the bare ground. And then you can look down into the drainage system and you can see this red water coming in and meeting the clear water. It's just bang. It's just right there, right in front of your face. And Will's property is in the regenerative grazing, and his neighbor's property is in the commercial annual crop commodity system.
Mm-hmm. We have 2 questions, 2 hands. We'll take these as the last 2, and then we'll have to take off. So Larry, you have a question or comment?
Yes, regarding schools, we have seen them also have been very proactive in reducing animal consumption or animal protein, which goes back to taking cattle off the land, which is absolutely the wrong thing to be healthy grass.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have actively growing animals.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, they need to be put together. I mean, you can't have one without the other. And it's very much, we have done a lot of work with Ag in a Class in Canada. So we've been going out and doing presentations like this, and that helps a lot.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, if you don't have somebody to do it, all they'll do is go to Netflix and watch Cowconspiracy. And that just is the wrong idea. One other thing I thought we have to look more at, instead of saying we need change, maybe we should be talking about how we can adapt to the changing climate.
Mm-hmm.
And with our farming practices, you can't convert people overnight to one thing. So how do you get people to adapt to survive for the next 5 years instead of next 10 years? That's our 3 years. To me, I think we have to start bringing people in and talking about how do we get people productive and staying profitable on their land. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Larry, thank you. So speaking of Netflix and Cowspiracy, Kiss the Ground movie is also on Netflix.
That's true.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, let's just have them watch that, okay?
Yeah.
If they want to watch both, if you want to just be completely, like a true sort of academic, have them watch both and then have a discussion.
And there is another one that's out right now, right? So
yeah,
Kiss
the Common Ground is premiering now. It's the sequel to Kiss the Ground.
And should I say that you will be in another one here soon?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I've been interviewed for the 3rd one, which is called Groundswell. But you never know what happens in the editing room. So let's wait on that. But at any rate, I'm definitely helping to promote the 2nd one called Common Ground, and that will also, of course, end up on Netflix soon enough. So there'll be plenty of good movies also on Netflix to counter the misinformation coming from Cowspiracy. Now, what you could say is that we stand against, conventional animal agriculture as it is predominantly done, which is in these, horrifying concentration camps for animals. And yes, that's bad.
Mhm.
And one of the main reasons it's bad is because it also still relies on conventional grain agriculture.
Mhm.
So that whole system is bad.
All
But
right.
but the solution is to change the whole system. And it turns out that cows and other livestock will be an essential part of changing the whole system. So what schools should do is schools should just say, we're going to wean ourselves off of conventionally grown food of any kind, and we're going to be sourcing holistic, organically produced food as locally as possible and as much as possible. That should just be the doctrine, not whether it's meat or not, but how it's sourced and what its true environmental footprint is.
Mhm.
Okay, enough
So
of that.
we'll take Mary Alice, last comment or question, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Okay, before I lose this thought, I want to Seth let me know after I'm finished with my statement if in fact hydroponically growing is good. But thank you, Seth, and thank you, Larry, because Larry touched base on it as well. I had a conversation with one of the young ladies that some of you know and may not know. Gwendolyn Times is teaching the biology class, and she was, as I was speaking with her, she got the way she was explaining it was like these children aren't going to learn anything because they are on the computer, and you just touch base on them watching things on YouTube or Netflix movies of science or biology, whichever. And I was already thinking in terms of trying to get them on field trips to go out and visit farm areas and stuff like that. I have a friend that has a farm, and I spoke with a young lady once about bringing the children out to ride the horses and stuff, and just connecting them with nature itself. That I wish somebody had to do more for myself and understanding the importance of it. But um, are you guys and Dr. Murray? I mean, I don't know how that works and what it looks like for you to go in, and I think Larry touched base on it, that is something that he has done or does, to go into the school, I mean, once invited, and give an illustration or facilitate. I don't know. I'm
Um,
just throwing something up beside the wall.
well, I think you know that we've been doing that over the years. And I guess it depends on the teachers and the principal and all of that. But that's something we've been doing over the years in different ways.
With Benton Harbor area schools?
Oh yeah,
Okay, okay.
we've done it several times. And we continue to do it, for example, in trying to invite them to be part of Environmental Fridays and using the videos and all of that. So it's a continuing process.
Okay, so they actually watch these.
That I didn't say that. I didn't say
I
that.
wouldn't want them to hear me, so okay, thank you.
All right, guys. Again, this was a very, at least for me, it was a very informational. I learned a lot and perspective on how the soil and earth could be a strong and significant factor in our climate solution. That's something that I fully now beginning to appreciate. And I want to thank you, Seth, for this work that you're doing. And hang in there, even though it's going to be slow at times for change to happen. That's part of the process in change. It's usually very slow, it takes time, but hang in there, you're doing a good work. And we will be sure to talk to you again and invite you back for some other aspect of what you're doing here. So want to thank everyone else for showing up to our Environmental Fridays, and we look forward to seeing you next week, Friday.
Dr. Murray, just real quick before you sign off, I also want to thank everyone and thank you for reaching out to me. And I want to encourage people to check out the Soil for Climate website. It's just soilforclimate.org. and also the Soil for Climate Facebook group. That's kind of where
Yeah.
all the conversation in our group happens. Or
Updates and stuff. Yeah.
I'm trying to get it more on LinkedIn now as well.
Okay.
So I've been posting there more. But that's sort of where our community is for now, is on Facebook.
All
So
right.
definitely check us out there now. And if anyone knows anyone with some money, you know, I know we all need it, but we're really trying to get these East Africa projects funded.
Okay.
And you know, any the giving organizations, and this is the time of year. So just put a pitch out there
Okay.
for that. Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Okay, everyone,
Can
take
I have
care.
Seth's information? How can I reach you?
I could send you all of his contact info.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Thank you.
Yeah,
Stay
okay.
safe, everybody.
Okay. Take
Thank you,
care.
Mary Alice. Thank you, Larry. Everyone else. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.